Hello.
What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you a new build breakdown update for Black Widow. So I was messing around with this build, and man, this build is so much better. It's so much more fun to play with. So let's go ahead and take a look at her two main attributes. She gets fighting and intelligence as her two main attributes, and she automatically gets 15% crit hit damage. And the next thing is in Bite Voltage. Her primary resource is Voltage. Gauntlet powers spend Voltage. Well, that's actually part of a talent, so they originally don't. Voltage does not naturally regenerate. When fully drained, Voltage starts to rapidly regenerate, restoring 25% of your max voltage per second until full. While recharging, Gauntlet powers cannot be activated. And then on the right box, Kevlar reinforced bodysuit, health gained 700 per second for 4 seconds when you use a medkit. And then you get deflect rating and dodge rating multiplier by 20%. Deflect rating and dodge rating for base is 600. And then you also gain close quarters. Close quarters gives you, it says when you hit with a melee power, you gain 8% damage reduction for 3 seconds. So now to take a look at her abilities. So Silent Killer, her dash ability, which also puts her into stealth, I put that on L2 circle. And then Electric Batons. It's not going to be called Electric Batons. It'll be called, oops, I'll just do this. It'll originally be called Stinging Strikes. So Stinging Strikes on X. I put Bullet Barrage on L2X. Deadly Kick on L2 square, Stinging Shot on square, Shock Field on circle, and then this one as well is not originally called conductive grenades. It is called anti-personnel grade grenades. I put that on triangle. So like I said, so I went with Silent Killer on circle, or L2 circle, Stinging Strikes on X, Bullet Barrage on L2X, Deadly Kick on L2 square, Stinging Shot on square, Shock Field on circle, Anti-Personnel Grenades on triangle, and Twilight Cloaking Device for signature on L2 triangle. Now, for my talents, I'm using kinetically charged battery. You get a max voltage of up to 100. Voltage generation is increased by 5%. Max voltage per second while moving. And then when you use Silent Killer, voltage generation gives you an additional 10% of max voltage. So anytime you dodge or you use your dash ability, you get basically 15% max voltage because of that 5% per second, and then you get that extra 10% when you dash. So it's going to be a really useful way. It's going to help you a lot with this build to sustain more voltage. The next one is Voltaic Batons. So Stinging Strikes transforms into Electric Batons. Electric Batons spends voltage to deal increased damage. Bullet Barrage transforms into Stinging Barrage. Stinging Barrage spends voltage to deal increased damage. And then I went with Conductive Grenades. Anti-personnel grenades transforms into Conductive Grenades. Conductive Grenades does not stun enemies directly, but makes the next electric power trigger a damage effect and stuns the target. So anytime you use anti-personnel grenade, they'll have a status effect on them, and it'll do a nice splash status effect on them, and then you use any of your electric abilities, and then they get stunned and they take additional electric damage. Whoa, no. So the next one is Overcharge. Shock Field spends all available voltage, dealing bonus damage based on how much it was spent. So that's definitely going to be useful AoE. Like if you have enemies around you, it's going to be useful for that. So, but try not to spam it so much because you are limited to your voltage. I mean, like I said, you can still get your voltage back from moving around, but still, you know. And then Never Know What Hit Them is the last talent you're going to go for. Twilight Cloaking Device applies concealed and empowered. Passive effect damage increase is 20% to enemies not targeting you. And when you're concealed, enemies are not targeting you because you're invisible. Invisibility for the concealed duration is 5 seconds. And then buff effect empowered, that gives you a 40% base damage increase, and it's a 5-second buff duration as well. So I'm gonna go back and talk about what the abilities do because the talents changed them, obviously. So electric batons, this is great for when you're fighting a group of enemies because you're going to be hitting 3 enemies at once, and it doesn't take too much voltage either. I'm using a few artifacts and artifact mods that reduce how much voltage cost it takes, but yeah, for me it's 75.7 voltage cost, which is not a lot at all. But when you're when you're fighting a boss doing single target, Stinging Barrage is what you're going to want to do, which is why I have that on L2X, so I can just hold L2X and hold X. This doesn't take a lot of voltage either at all. It's only 22.7. But you know, you'll do nice damage against single target, so this is definitely going to help. And it's also rapid fire, so you're going to be hitting that target really quick. So you're probably going to want to use this over using this when you're fighting the boss. I mean, you could still use this, but using Stinging Barrage at a nice range is definitely going to be helpful for you if you're trying to have a little bit of more survivability. And then Deadly Kick is definitely going to be super useful because this gives you 100% crit hit chance and 100% crit damage bonus. Unfortunately, it's not the brutal. There is a talent where it gives you 100% brutal chance, but we're not going to be using that one. We're using this one. But I mean, regardless, this is still really good to use. So the next one is Stinging Shot. So Stinging Shot hits up to 10 enemies, and the damage is really, really, really nice as well. Yeah, like I said, it hits 10 enemies. So this is one of your main mob trash clearing abilities. If you're doing trials with this build, this is definitely going to be one that's going to help you out a lot. And then after that, well, first what you want to use is you want to use conductive grenades. So you use conductive grenades, debuffs the enemies by applying conductive fluid, and then it'll do 8835 to 13,252 damage, additional damage to the enemy, as well as stunning them. So you use this, and then you can use Stinging Shot if you're at range, and if you're close up in melee, you would use Shock Field. If you use Shock Field, this is gonna do more damage than Stinging Shot in general. But Shock Field is only a close ranged AoE ability. So it's not gonna hit enemies from afar, but it is a pretty decent close ranged ability. And yeah, so and then the signature itself, what the signature does is it'll put you to stealth, and you do damage over time to enemies, slow the enemies, stun the enemies. You get a buff effect for increased invisibility and damage, and you also get health regen as well. And you become immune to all negative status effects and whatnot. So, for my synergies, I went with Beast for the intelligence, Black Widow, Cyclops, Daredevil, Hawkeye, Iron Man, Punisher, Squirrel Girl, Thor, and War Machine for his fighting. And then for my infinity points, I put my points into fighting, so that way I get more crit hit rating, as well as my base damage increase. And then I put the rest of my points into deep thought. The reason why you want to have more abilities in deep thought is, one, the shock field, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, shock field will do more damage based off of how much more voltage you have. But not just that, the more voltage you have, the more you can spam your abilities. So yeah, I mean, you can obviously you can still regain your voltage back really quick, but you know, being able to have more voltage is definitely going to help out a lot. Um, the next, oh, and another thing, I guess, would if you don't want to spend it on deep thought or your attributes, you can always increase your health or your defense. You can increase your movement and attack speed. That definitely helps out a whole lot for any character, increasing attack speed. I wouldn't want to, if I were you, I just wouldn't increase attack speed based off of your gear, only through infinity points or, you know, from your legendary item if that gives you attack speed. And then probably not potency because of the fact that the cooldown is long. Um, or you can go for health on hit. Health on hit is always useful. And the crit damage and brutal damage. So for my gear, I have pretty decent gear on. Not what I really want at the moment, but for the legendary item, you want to get the Cosmic Control Rod because all your shock abilities become energy based as well, which is really nice. So Cosmic Control Rod definitely becomes the number one prioritized ability legendary item to use. Now, if you're still using the special emergency communicator, the one that gives you your damage buffs when you use stealth, that's not bad. You can still use that, but I would think you would want to use the Cosmic Control Rod because the damage output from it is just so much better than the special emergency communicator. Next, you're going to want to use the Mega Sentinel Medallion. When you hit with an energy power, you gain... This one, for some reason, this is a lot less than my Superheroic Medallion. My Superheroic Medallion gives me up to 900 damage to energy powers for 10 seconds. This one's only 618, but it's a 0.5 second cooldown. But it gives me my Brutal Strike, and I needed Brutal Strike. My Catalyst, I don't have that great of a Catalyst at all. I don't have much for it. But the things that are nice is the fact that it gives me the plus 73 voltage and plus 2 intelligence. It would be nice if I got plus 3 intelligence though. I'm using Relic of Gibrim because of that extra voltage right there. And then my artifacts, all these artifacts are really good for Black Widow with this build. So I got it I'm using the Advanced Reserve Electrical Generator. It gives voltage, so it'll give you 49 to 80 voltage. When you critically hit, gain plus 3 voltage on hit for 8 seconds, stacks up 3 times. When you reach 3 stacks, you gain 707 crit damage for 8 seconds. When you drop below 25% max voltage, you gain 30 spirit recovery for 16 seconds and it's 30-second cooldown. And then you gain 200 to 300 defense rating, and then 1 to 3 energy. The only reason why mine isn't at 3 is because I was trying to reroll to have high voltage cost reduction, but I also wanted to get higher energy, but you know, it was whatever. I just decided to take the voltage cost reduction because it was closer to 10%, and I don't mind not having 8% extra base damage, but yeah, so you get the voltage cost reduction from 5 to 10%. And you can get this Advanced Reserve Electro Generator from Electro. Oh, whoops. And then the next one is Black Tom's Cosmically Enhanced Shlayla. You can get this from Juggernaut in Church of Purification or on the patrol events. But what this gives is you can get 1000 to 1200 health, 568 to 668 deflex rating, 350 to 500 energy power damage, and 2 to 4 energy. And then I got, while in combat, reduce the cooldown of your signature powers by 10%. Also, before I forget, the modifications I'm using on my artifacts on all 3 is efficiency modification, because you get 4% voltage cost reduction, the 209 health, and 200 increased damage rating. And then the last one would be the Gem of the Cursed. So you can get 200 to 375 crit hit rating, 200 to 375 brutal strike rating, 600 to 900 brutal damage rating, and 600 to 900 crit damage rating. And then you can get this from the Odin's Palace. And then my ring, I'm using Maxwell Jordan's Lost Ring Stone. Only reason why I'm using this is because of the increase in voltage, and my max voltage increase is 10%, or increased by 10%. And then my stats, I'm at 35.6k average effective health, 28% damage reduction, so really low survivability. But I'm at 3740 crit hit rating, 5412 energy. Oh no, yeah, 5412 energy crit hit rating. So I'll be critting more than 50% of the time. My crit damage is at 5610, and then my brutal strike rating is only 1346. So I definitely need to increase that. Brutal damage rating is 3575, so that also needs to be increased. Damage rating is at 3000. Base damage is at 136% increased. So I will show you what each ability does. So this is the batons. As you can see, it's arcing to 3 other enemies nearby. And then here's the shock field. It uses up all of my my resources, so I'll use it again. So I'll use it in the middle of them. It doesn't hit too bad. It hits pretty nice. And remember, while you're moving, you can get your resources back even quicker. And then here's shock field, arcs between 10 enemies. And then you have your conductive your conductive grenades. And then what that does, as you can see, it applies. You'll notice because it makes them like soaked. And then if you use it, use the any of your electricity abilities, and then it stuns them and it does extra damage. So I'll do that and then I'll pop it again. Oh, messed that up, but oh well. Then after you have L2X, which is your grenades. Like I said, it's only single target, but it does nice, has a really nice attack speed, so built-in attack speed. And then you have L2 square, the deadly kick, which does 100% crit hit chance and 100% crit damage. So generally you would want to be in stealth probably when you use it, so that way if you're trying to go into stealth, also roll, that way you can go into stealth. And then your signature, L2 triangle, and then that can also give you full energy as well, or resources. So here's what I normally go about with my build or my rotations. I normally use triangle first, and then I'll either use square or circle depending on how many enemies there are and how far away grouped they are. If they're grouped pretty close, then I'll use it, and then I'll use square. That way it hits a lot harder. And then I start using X, and then I'll just keep, every time you have triangle, every time your anti-personnel grenades spawns up, not anti-personnel, your conductive or conductive grenades is done with its cooldown, just use it. It doesn't use any resources, so you would just want to use that as much as you can. And then also try to use your deadly kick as much as you can as well, because that's where a lot of your damage comes from too. So but yeah, her rotations are really easy, really simple. If you have, like I said, if there's a bunch of enemies nearby, then use square. If they're kind of scattered around, then use L2 circle, or just use circle. And you can still use circle regardless over square. Circle will, obviously, it'll do a little more damage over time off of your groups. So if you're doing trials, you would probably want to use this one more, because it does more damage regardless over time. But and then yeah, this build is definitely, in my opinion, a lot better than her bomb build. But anyways, if this video helped you out at all, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions or suggestions, let me know down in the comment section or on my Twitter at alldayanyday1. If you have any other characters you'd like to see, go ahead and let me know. I probably have them, because I did complete my last 3 characters to level 60, and I just need to get them through cosmic trials, and then I'll be done with everyone. But I will continue to keep making build breakdown videos for every other character, so that way you can use those builds for your general builds or to see if it works for you in trials. But yeah, like I said, if this video helped you out at all, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe, and this is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.